I think for me, and most of our traits and who we are, we can draw back to our childhood. For me, because I played sports, I was never the most talented on the team. A lot of the times I was actually the captain of my soccer team, my basketball team. And I just knew, because I didn't have as much talent as some of the other people I'm competing against, like I just had to one up in effort. Like I had to go the extra mile in order to compete, in order to win. And that just stuck with me. And even in business, right? Like I'm in the financial space. There's people that are older than me, that are smarter than me, that have been in the game longer than me. But that doesn't mean that I can't affect the marketplace and I can't change people's lives and impact what they're doing and alter their future and really make a difference in someone's life that lives in Kentucky.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. Get on it.
All right, so here we are on episode 20 of Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast, and I'm excited here to have Daniel Blue with Quest Education, and he helps business owners get creative with self-directed retirement accounts, giving them options to pull money for business investments, pay off debt, and control working capital. What's going on, brother?
Jason, appreciate you having me on the show. I wish I was in sunny California instead of 115 degrees in Vegas, but hey, we can still jam via technology.
We can. Well, I've done my homework, and sometimes you get these feelings, and so I felt that I was going to do this right. And we talked about how I had a condo in Vegas, and I was going back, and I don't know if you know this, but do you remember your first post that you put in on Facebook?
Man, I can't remember. I mean, I'm probably 3 years in Facebook. I'm kind of late to the game, social media. So I'm sure it got like 1 like, 2 likes, maybe.
Well, it meant more to that than me. Actually, it was right in front of the Riverside County Assessor's Office is where you got
when I got married.
And that was that's my hometown. And so that right there, okay. I thought, you know what? And you probably have a couple stories about how your father came from Mexico. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And so I thought it would be right to take a shot of Hornitos right here, just to say, you know what?
Nice.
I appreciate you coming out. I really don't do this often, but I just had this little feeling. This is a double barrel black label. So all 3 of those things that we just talked about, I thought it would just kick off saying, man, I appreciate you cruising over here. And here's to you, my friend. And I learned something in Mexico. Let's see if it goes well. Let's see if it goes well.
Blow out from your mouth. Don't breathe in. Yeah, bro, I can't.
And then you just let it all the way out, and then you don't get that funky face that everybody gets.
Man. Yeah, like that's definitely something I learned as a kid, unfortunately, drinking tequila. Like when you drink tequila, you naturally just want to breathe in with your nose. But if you do that, it tastes like shit, right? So you just drink the tequila, let it chill, and then just breathe out from your mouth. And then when you breathe in from your nose, you're good. You're good. So you got it down, bro.
Well, I always say you get that sour butt face, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can lay it out. But I'm going to jump into something that's quite interesting, and where we met. And I always think good people meet when there's sometimes maybe there's friction, but you create good friendships. We met on a social media post, and it kind of serves this exact moment in a guy named Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor and the post, I think we were talking about all these crazy guys making money, and they just act like absolute idiots, right?
Yeah.
And the comment that I had talked with you about was basically, do you think we'd ever even hear from them? And I think it's just a tale of, you look at Conor McGregor's last fight, big fan, went to Ireland to watch him fight. But here's my question to you, being in the money game and in the money world and management. Do you see that type of personality, or when can they actually create a conservative mindset with their money if they're wild like that?
I think it's twofold. One, I think the environment really matters, right? Like, who are these people surrounding themselves with? For example, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. And, when I was in high school, I was like, man, I just want to make $100,000. If I can make $100,000, like, mama, we made it. Right. And when I made $100,000 when I was 18 years old, I didn't know how to manage that money. I didn't know how to spend that money. So I was just buying dumb shit. I was spending more than I was making. And a lot of that had to do with the lack of me having experience, but then also the people I hung around with. No one was checking me. No one was saying, hey, you should probably think twice. I didn't have anyone to look up to and be like, man, like, I can learn from that person, or I'm getting sage advice, sage wisdom from this person. So had I had a better circle of friends, I think my circumstances would have changed. I would have made different decisions. And I think, like, Mike Tyson is notorious for that, right? I think in that post you're referencing, I brought up Mike Tyson. He had a big circle of friends where, you're paying for this, you're paying for that. I mean, you hear about all of that with athletes and rock stars, like they're just paying for their whole entourage. And if you just have a different type of people around you where, there's people, I think I read Rob Gronkowski, he does not spend any money from his earnings from his NFL. He only spends the money from his endorsements. So all like $100 million, $50 million, contracts, like, he's not touching that money. That is not something that he came up with, right? Like, that, those are other people in his corner that are helping him with that. Obviously he's his own man, he makes his own choice, but I think a lot of it has to do with, your circle, who you have around you. And that applies to all of us, not just, rich athletes.
Yeah. And I think that being in Vegas, you see a lot of that mentality. And I know that, probably living there, you don't go to that part of that area of Vegas that people see all the time. But I think that being close to that mentality of that risk taker, really they're marketing to the guy to come in on his jet and drop the money and then basically, fall off and want to come back again, I guess. So being in this, I do like to kind of go back a little bit, and you already kind of opened that up. What was your first initial knowing that you were going to go after something entrepreneurial, or, was it job? Was it seeing somebody that was the boss? What was that transition for you?
I like to tell people how I perceive entrepreneurship is there's two types of entrepreneurs. There's that one that just at a young age knew they wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? Like Gary Vee, right? Like, he's always talking about, like, he was selling sports cards in school and, grabbing flowers from the park that were for free and then selling them to his neighbors and making money. Like, he just was a hustler and entrepreneurial, like, out the womb. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And then there's people that kind of just stumble into becoming an entrepreneur, and it just happened. And that's me. I didn't grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I just grew up wanting to compete. I played sports my whole life. So I was never the most talented on the team, but I always competed. And at a young age, even my first job, I worked at Stater Brothers. I don't know if you guys have Stater Brothers down there in your hood, Oceanside.
I grew up with Stater Brothers right down the street.
Man. Yeah, man. So, like, I had the green apron when I was 16, making $6.25 an hour bagging groceries and putting away grocery carts. I wanted to be the best grocery bagger there was. Like, I that was just me. And then I started roofing at 17 years old. I wanted to be the best roofer. So that was just like a mentality that I had. A lot of it came from my mom, seeing her bust her ass and her work. So that was just always my mentality. And then I went to college because society told me to when I was 18, dropped out of college when I was 18. I was able to network at a young age and stumbled across a sales career. So I was on the phone, jamming, making money. That's where I made my first $100,000 at 18. And then from there, it's just a matter of wanting to become the best appointment setter, and then the best closer, and then have the best team. And then, eventually you get to a certain point, and this is when I was about 24, 25, 26, where I'm just like, like, the next step is owning my own business. Like, and I love sports. I love rallying the troops and being around people and competing. I'm just like, man, my next step is entrepreneurship. And that's what I'm meant to be. And that's how my story ended up getting to a point where I am today, where I started my company 3 years ago. What
were you selling?
Real estate coaching. So, like, you see, flip this. Yeah. Wow. So it was an infomercial lead. People would call in, buy an opportunity to make money with real estate. And then we would upsell coaching. So it was really high pressure. It was setter, closer. You had to call 150 people a day. You're getting told no. You're getting hung up on. You're dealing with rejection. So that definitely taught me a lot as well, as far as putting in the work ethic, and then being able to take rejection and being able to communicate over the phone.
You talk a lot about going the extra mile, and I think that it comes up a lot. And you hear a lot of guys with that personality, maybe quite young. What comes to mind when you think go the extra mile? Is it a business thing? Is it a life thing? Is it, what is it kind of that resonates with you when that comment comes out?
I think for me, and most of our traits and who we are, we can draw back to our childhood. For me, because I played sports, I was never the most talented on the team. A lot of the times I was actually the captain of my soccer team, my basketball team. And I just knew, because I didn't have as much talent as some of the other people I'm competing against, like I just had to one up them in effort. Like I had to go the extra mile in order to compete, in order to win. And that just stuck with me. And even in business, right? Like I'm in the financial space. There's people that are older than me, that are smarter than me, that have been in the game longer than me. But that doesn't mean that I can't affect the marketplace, and I can't change people's lives and impact what they're doing, and alter their future and really make a difference in someone's life that lives in Kentucky. We've got customers in all 50 states. So, I apply that to our business. Like we have to go the extra mile in customer service and making sure that people understand, like, yo, we don't look at you just as a number. Like we care about you. We know your story. We know where you're coming from. Let's find out what you need and how we can help you.
I guess, you're doing real estate, high pressure, and there's probably a shift. And you said, look, I'm going to go into finance. Was that after you had already, I'm going to use the word bagged cash, but was that already where you're like, I'm going to try and manage my own money? Did you make a transition and manage your own money? Or did you find yourself being mentored by somebody? And then what kind of got you into? I'm always interested in how people get into the financial industry, because there's a certain mentality in that, right? I mean, it's numbers. I mean, you have to be able to sit there and run the numbers. And I think that what you just shared is actually quite interesting to me, because sales and then running the numbers in many cases gets overlapped with somebody that's the accountant, right? So what those two brains, that's many times a different brain. I mean,
it is, man. Like, I got a CFO, I got operations manager. Like I have skill sets that I lack that I'm getting better at. However, I have to delegate and hire within to help me make sure that we're running our business the way it needs to go, and we're forecasting and moving in the right direction. But back to your original question and your point, I was in fourth grade. Her name is Miss Gathray, like one of my favorite teachers. I still remember her, my favorite teacher of all time. One of her assignments she gave us is she wanted us to look at the newspaper in the business section and all the stocks that were laid out, pick a company and follow it for a month. And that's how she taught us like a share price. And then we started to study like what made it go up and down. I picked Nike, right? I'm in fourth grade. I love playing sports. Like, who doesn't know Nike, right? So I thought that was really cool. I was really fascinated by stocks and the investment world at a young age. And then when I'm selling real estate coaching, I'm on the phone with successful real estate investors. And they were talking about using their IRAs and 401ks to flip a house. Using their IRAs and 401ks to purchase a rental property. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that. I thought your retirement account, your IRA or 401k, was just to buy stocks like Nike and Apple and mutual funds. I didn't know you could use it to invest outside the stock market like that. That's what opened up my eyes with the self-directed world. And
say that word again. Can you share that word again? The
self-directed retirement account world. That just means you can invest your money wherever you want. So most people have a retirement account in the traditional world, right? They can buy mutual funds, they can buy index funds, they can buy stocks, they can buy bonds, they can buy ETFs, REITs, just Wall Street based assets. That's what most people watching or listening to this are accustomed to. Then there's what are called self-directed retirement accounts. And that gives you the backside of the menu, where you can flip over the menu and now you can invest in precious metals. You actually can have your retirement account own gold, not a gold mining stock, but actually precious metals. Your retirement account can actually own Bitcoin. It can invest into crypto. It can invest into a fund with Grant Cardone, private lending, private equity. It can flip a house, rental properties. There's also certain plans that allow you to take money out, penalty and tax free, and you could use that money to start your business that you've always wanted to start. Or maybe you need some capital to jumpstart your business. You could use some of the money there. Maybe you have high interest rate credit card debt. There's certain self-directed plans that allow you to take money out, penalty and tax free, and pay off high interest rate credit card debt. So these self-directed retirement accounts have a lot more flexibility and options than traditional retirement accounts. So that world was introduced to me. Shoot, I'm 32. So this was probably about 7-8 years ago. And that really stuck with me then.
Is that something, because I think the way that you explain that is like, hey, you can buy the index funds and, you can go buy your different stocks, you can do all that, and flipping the paper over. In many cases, I think we saw this with like AMC, or we saw AMC, right? Yeah.
GameStop.
We had the stop, we had this whole thing. I think it opened up the minds of, we thought that was going on, but we really didn't have the means or the pressure to expose it. And what you're sharing, do you think that these are things that the majority of people don't hear about because they're not privy to the regular person intentionally? Or do you think it's something that you just, maybe your financial advisor doesn't even open up?
Yeah, bullet point number 2, man. So my book that's coming out next month, Blueprint to Your Best Retirement Account, your best retirement. There's an account that I talk about where these accounts, IRAs, 401ks, brokerage accounts, I have a chapter in there where I talk about Wall Street and how dirty that game is. Follow the money, right? Like some people watching this right now, they might remember, I know you remember, Jason, that commercial that Fidelity had. It was called Follow the Green Arrow. And it was like these people that would come together, and like a little green arrow would show up on the sidewalk, and they would follow the green arrow, and they're all happy. Like, that's what Wall Street wants you to do. Just follow the green arrow, look down, don't ask questions, and just follow them. And ultimately, you have to follow the money. Wall Street makes anywhere from 0.5% to 2% a year assets under management, right? So they're managing trillions of dollars. Take $1 trillion, take $500 billion times 1%. It's a lot of money, right? So the more money they have in these accounts, the more fees they generate. Why would they want to teach you how to take money out of your retirement account, penalty and tax free, to start a business, to invest into a property and flip it? They're not making money off of that, right? So self-directed retirement accounts, they've been around for decades. It's not brand new. It's not some shady brand new retirement account that just came out. Like, these are IRS approved retirement accounts. They are just not talked about because it does not make money for financial advisors and, wealth management companies and just Wall Street in general.
Yeah, I think that it really did open up the eyes. And I think a lot of people, it's that natural instinct, oh, they're screwing us, but I think that it really opened the doors to a lot of people. And I think that one thing that you're noticing is a lot of the guys that were in the gaming world, I don't know if you've seen a lot of articles about this, but guys who were playing video games and all that stuff, they transitioned to stock trading, and they started to kind of just put themselves in those positions and try to make better decisions financially, but using that kind of, I don't want to use OCD is probably not the right word, but I mean, the ability to actually just sit there for hours and play some form of game. You're seeing a lot of that, is that, let's ask that question. Is that scary to the market? Putting all of that into the hands of the consumer, crypto. I mean, Dogecoin gets thrown out there. Then they say that, crypto's fake. And then now it's everybody go buy gold. Do you think the risk or the jerk reactions are going to affect a majority of people because they don't have risk management?
That's why I love America, right? Like, we are so blessed to live in America and have the freedoms and opportunities and the choices every single day, that decisions we can make that so many countries don't have. So I'm pro-choice. I believe that, we should be able to make a lot of our own decisions. And especially in entrepreneurship, man, like, you're in the entrepreneurship game, like it's risky, right? Like nothing is guaranteed. We have to do our research, our due diligence. We have to make so many decisions. And if we go out of business, if we fail, that's on us, right? So, I am more so for people being able to have a bigger menu of options and they get to choose. Now, if that person, if a different person, let's just say, is like hands off, I don't want to be involved. I'm okay paying 2% a year for Bob and Fidelity to manage my money. I don't even want to make any choices. Like, I just want them to deal with it. Like, I don't even care. If that's their choice, then that's on them. Like, more power to them. But I just think that Americans should just be able to have more information at their disposal so they can make an educated decision on, what they want to do or not do.
And I think that, it's obvious out into our world right now, and not driving it politically, but there is changing of indoctrinations, if you like it or you don't. There's a lot of things going on right now. And what would be your thoughts on why is it that financially educated or people being indoctrinated in a financial standpoint when we were younger? Obviously they don't do this now, but I would have to say that it wasn't until 10th grade did they sit down and say, okay, everybody, here is a fake checkbook. And I don't even know, looking back in high school, Mr. Howell was his name, and he was the basketball coach. And I'll never forget, because he actually sat down and he was like, look, this is a checkbook. This is how this works. And I kind of look back, I'm like, if he didn't do that, no one would have gotten that education. Do you think that's built into our ethos of a company or as a country? Do you think it's intentional?
Yeah. I think the world, the way that our structure is set up, these big, huge companies, it's banks, credit card companies, these big financial institutions, they spend a lot of money donating to Congress, right? Like, you just follow the money. And ultimately, if people are in a position where they're paying high interest rate debt, they're not able to really get ahead financially, it's going to make a lot of people, a lot of companies money. And at the end of the day, I think there's a reason why financial literacy really isn't taught to us at a young age, right? Like, I didn't learn about an LLC or how credit scores work, utilization rates, how an interest rate on a mortgage works until later in life. And ultimately, that's on me for not wanting to pay attention and actually, when I turn 18 to study. But like, they definitely should be teaching some of the basics in high school, at the very least, in terms of some of the basic principles, so that way you're set up more for success as an adult when you turn 18.
What do you think some of those basics should be? Obviously math is a pretty good one. but
for sure.
I'm starting at the bottom here.
Yeah, man. I think mental health for sure. I think mindset. I didn't hear the word personal development and commitment and discipline and things like that until later in life. I hear it every so often, but actually understanding how important mental health is. I think credit scores are huge, man. Like, when I was 18, 19, 20, I was just like, I don't need a credit card. Like, if I have the ability to pay for it, I'll just use cash. Like, why do I need a credit card? But like, credit is so important. I maxed out my credit cards to start this business 3 years ago. I've used my credit cards to make money for business expenses. I still do, right? So having the means to access the bank's money and use credit, like, you need that as for certain times. So credit score to me is one of the big ones, because now that affects you so much, right? Like, it affects your car loan, right? Like, you can have an interest rate of 8% on a car loan versus 4% just because your credit score. Cell phone companies look at your credit score, your utilities, right? Like, your mortgage, the difference between buying a house and renting a house, right? Like, your house, people buying a house is one of the biggest purchases they're going to make in their whole life. And yet, we're not taught at a younger age, what a mortgage is and how interest works and things like that.
Yeah, I had a scenario. I was quite young. I was fortunate, and I went after it when I was younger as well, like you. And I recognized, this is what my situation is, and I decided I wasn't going to go to college, and if I'm not going to go to college, then I'm going to have to learn how to sell. And
Yeah.
when I went to learn how to sell, I was fortunate. A guy had owned a dealership, and I'd worked at the dealership. I was young. I mean, I was 20 at the time. And I think I had a small car loan. But I went up to him, and I remember it was like, housing time. And I was like, what do you think about maybe buying a house? And the guy, I'd actually gotten the idea because I'd interview everybody I sold. What would
Yeah.
you do if you could do it over? What would you do if you could do it
Yeah.
over? What would you? And I kind of created my first survey,
Yeah.
at a young age in there. And they said, I wish I didn't do as many drugs as I did. And then the second one is they said, I wish I would have just bought a house early. And I remember just walking back and going, well, I wonder how that works. And, I didn't have any education on that or whatever. And so I went to the owner, and he took me up, and he put the balls in my court, I guess you could say, because I had no idea. And at that time, he took me over, and we went up to these houses, and I found this older house, and he goes, no, you know what? Come with me. And we go to this new property, and it was a new track and all. And so we got the guy that was the real estate guy, the presenter or whatever. We went to the house, and the house was 3,300 square feet, 3,200 square feet. And then the guy just kind of is presenting to him, and he looks at me and says, don't look at me, look at him. And that move, I was 20 years old. I walked away with like $260,000. And that was like a shift, right? And at such a young age, that was a shift, but it almost was a gamble than it was educated, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's how we learn, right? Like my first house I bought, it was in '08. I was making really good money. It's right before the crash. And I was just like, all right, I can afford it. Let me buy a house. And I didn't think about one of the most important questions that you have to ask yourself when you make an investment. How long do you plan on staying in this investment? Right? Like if you're going to buy Apple stock, like how long do you plan on, or do you want to hold on to that stock? Right? Year, 5 years, that stuff matters, right? Like when I bought my house, I didn't even think about that. And I bought that house right before the market crashed. And I didn't have the mentality of, I'm going to be in this house for 10 years or 5 years. And because I didn't have that mentality and I didn't approach my exit strategy, I ended up losing the house. And, I'm 18 years old making bad decisions, but like something that elementary has to be asked when you buy a house. Like I bought a property, it was 2021. I bought a property 3 years ago. Market was really, really high, still high, right? When I bought it in 2018, I'm looking at, man, we're on a freaking 8-year bull run. Market's been going up for a long time. Like, should I buy? But I was like, dude, I'm going to be in this house for at least 10 years. I don't give a shit if my property takes, if we have a crash, like I'm going to be here 10 years. I don't care. I know in 10 years from now, what I bought this property for in 2018, I know in 2028, it's going to be worth more. So I don't care what happens. You live and you learn, right? So you got to make sure you go into it with that kind of perspective.
I think that's really true. And what a hard thing to wrap around your head when you're buying a home, because there's a statement that I'm sure that you've heard it as well. It's like, well, I'm going to buy this house and it doesn't really matter what the market happens because where am I going to live? And I think that what you do is that there is more options than you think. And that one option of kind of sticking at it or sticking through it is really it's not really real anymore. I mean, in your scenario with opening the doors to 401ks and IRAs and being able to pull that money out, that means you're just not stuck. And we're seeing that with travel. We're seeing that with people that want to be nomads and live in other countries. And so would you say, coming from that mentality, would you say that people take investments even in homes and really do say, look, I will get out and I'm okay with getting out at this point?
I think like for me, I was super clear in the sense of I know I was going to be in Vegas for 10 years, right? Like when I bought my house in 2018, I was like, I'm going to be here for at least 10 years. So I'm good. You brought up a good point. Like if you're thinking about moving and leaving the state or the city in 3-5 years, or like it's kind of on the fence, I don't like the mentality of, well, if I move, I'll just rent it out. Well, like, dude, what if the market takes a shit and your mortgage is 1,500 and now rents are 1,200, right? Like that changes things, right? So it really is going to come down to the kind of circumstance and situation that people are in. And there's always the debate of buying versus renting and things like that. I think it comes down to people. Like one of my friends, he's just like, dude, I never want to buy a house because I don't want to deal with fixing shit. Like, I just want to be able to call my property manager. And if I want to move somewhere, I want to move somewhere and not be tied down. Like that's his perspective. That's his mentality. Right. So everyone's just a little different.
Would you say that in those cases, if you're going to make that kind of decision, those kind of decisions can be wrapped around like it's a different asset? Because many times the reason that people make that decision in their home is because they look at it as their financial asset that's going to take them into their retirement. So it's like, oh, if I have this house, that's going to take into my retirement. I didn't really pay attention to a lot of that mentality of should I rent or not. I always thought it was just buy the house and go. And actually, Grant Cardone made a pretty good argument. He's the first person that I ever heard make a good argument. Now, as a large person that presses renting, that goes pretty good for him.
Yeah, but for reals. Yeah.
What do you think on that? I mean, even in the example that you gave me, is it people that are having businesses that are spitting off cash where they feel comfortable saying, hey, you know what? I don't need to make my home the asset for my retirement. Do you think that we're finding more of that?
How I would answer that question is most of my friends and people I associate with are entrepreneurs. So I know me and hearing from them talking as well, like we don't look at our houses as like our retirement. I look at it as just stability for my 12-year-old daughter, right? Like, I bought my house for $295,000 in 2018. I put $60,000 down, so I didn't have to pay PMI insurance. My mortgage is $1,400 a month. I'm going to pay $1,400 a month, no matter where. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Even if I rent, could I have taken that $60,000 and put it in my business and make a higher ROI or bought Bitcoin? Yeah. But I also bought this house, and right now it's like the neighbors are selling for like $450, $460. I bought it for $295, but I don't even give a shit about that because I'm not selling it, right? Like I'm going to be in it for 10 years. So I just look at it for me personally is I have more stability for my family, for my daughter. And I don't look at it as like it's part of my net worth or it's part of my retirement. I don't have that perspective towards it. Now, I can't speak for other people, right? That person that works a 9 to 5, that makes 50K, 70K a year, they might look at that as like, man, I'm banking on this. Like, this is my retirement. That's scary because especially if you're older and the market takes a shit, are you trying to take a home equity line of credit? Are you trying to do a reverse mortgage? Are you going to try to sell it to downsize? Are you going to try to rent it out? Now you're basing your future off of things you can't control. And I'm not a big fan of that.
I think that's a really good point. And I think that you brought her up a few times. And I think your story is awesome because you came out on the other end. But you did have a kid, right? And you had a young daughter, and you were at the age of 19. And I've heard your story as well. That was a surprise, I'm sure, to a 19-year-old. And I mean, just at that age, now, listening to that, like you're making good money, you now have a kid, but man, like, what did that do to your whole mindset? Because it's like, you're bringing someone with you now, you're taking someone on this journey. What was that like for you at that age to kind of try to have those two cohesive put together?
Yeah. So I was 18 when I actually got, her mom pregnant. And I was 19 when she was born, but I was 18 when she was pregnant. And I was just living sky high, man, making six figures, 18, cocky douchebag. I just bought the house. I bought a Range Rover. I'm on cloud nine. And I remember
19, you got a Range Rover.
Yeah. It was
Dude, I had a Denali. I was a douchebag too.
Oh yeah, man. I had 24s on it, had TVs in the background, in the back seats, like total douchebag. But I remember we were going on a walk around the neighborhood, her mom and I, and she's just like, "Hey, I got something to tell you." And she's like, "I'm pregnant." And remember, like, I think everyone can relate to this, like those times where you sit on a curb and you have your arm like on your knees, and then you put your head over your arm. Like that's what I did, man, for like 30 minutes. I was just like, dude, my life's over. Like I'm fucked. And I'm like, I'm a kid. Like, and I still had some personal issues going on. My dad moved to Mexico when I was 12. I didn't forgive him yet at that point. So I was still struggling like with who I was and who I wanted to become. And so I was still battling some demons. And I was like, dude, I'm not ready to be a dad. Like, I don't want to be a dad. Like, what are you talking about? But at this time I was using Oxycontin. I was essentially using heroin. So it was high. And I continued to use drugs for a while. I mean, I wasn't even, it's easier for me to talk about now because she's 12, but I wasn't even at the hospital when she was born. I didn't see my daughter until she was 2 weeks old. And I still used drugs when she was born, when she was a month, when she was 3 months. I didn't finally get clean until she was 6 months old. And I've been clean since then. She's 12 now. So to answer your question, it didn't really hit me until I lost my house. I moved from St. George to Las Vegas, and then reality hits me because I'm sober. And now it's just like, okay, like what else am I going to do? Like I got to be the best that I can be. I'm not going to abandon my daughter. I'm not going to be a bullshit, dad. Like I got to show up. Like God gave me this kid for a reason. Like I truly believe that God gave me a daughter to get me clean. So yeah, man, it was a lot of growing up, especially her mom and I parted ways when she was about a year old. So I did the whole court thing, battling that, dealing with, the whole baby mama drama. We hear about that in rap songs,
Yeah.
Outkast has
well,
that.
You had the Rover and everything.
Yeah, man. No, man. I lost the Rover. I lost the house. I went from driving an '06 Range Rover to driving, I think it was like a late '90s Honda Accord. You get humbled, but it all happens for a reason. The struggles on the other side of the struggle is just a new version of you and growing pains.
Obviously I have my ailments and my losing my mind times and things like that, but never went into the pill popping side of it. What was it like coming off of that? Because I hear that's a rough go. I mean, it took a lot of courage for you to continue off the path, right?
It was rough, man. So for those that, and I'm gonna say for those that don't know, but then I stopped myself. I'm just like, man, we're in 2021. I think most people listening, watching this either have done it themselves or know someone that knows someone that has been affected by pills. Oxycontin, Loratab, Percocet, Vicodin. Like these big pharmaceutical companies right now, I think Johnson & Johnson just got sued and had to settle for billions of dollars. Yeah. Like legitimately right now, if you just Google, Oxycontin lawsuits, like there's billions of dollars in lawsuits being paid right now from these companies for over prescribing, from giving pills to our country 10 years ago when I was using pills. Mm-hmm. So it's heroin in a pill is what these pills are essentially. It was rough, man. Like I had 2 seizures coming off these pills. You almost have like the flu when you go a day or so without using, you start sweating, it comes out on both ends. I try to get clean like 4, 5, 6 times, man, like legit get clean. And I just can never go past 3 days, a week, 2 weeks. Like something would happen in my life, the universe would test me, and then I was just so weak mentally that I would just relapse. And even after having seizures, And what finally got me clean was this would have been November 2009, Thanksgiving Day. My daughter and my family, they were at my house making dinner, Thanksgiving meal, and I needed to score. I needed to get some pills, and I was driving around town calling everyone to score, and no one was picking up. Imagine that, drug dealers are having turkey, and they weren't picking up my phone calls. And I just remember sitting in my car knowing that I wasn't going to be able to get high that night. And I was just like, man, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, my family is making turkey and it's Thanksgiving, it's a holiday. And I'm telling them that I'm going to the gas station to grab a Red Bull and I'll be back. And it's been an hour, right? I'm like, dude, I am just a piece of shit, a druggie. Like, is this the life I want to give Bella? Like, is this who I want Bella, my 6-month-old daughter, who is young enough right now where she don't know what's going on. She's 6 months, right? But like, she's going to be 2, she's going to be 5, she's going to be 10 one day. Like, is this what she's going to look up to? Like, no, man, like, this is not my life. And then I made phone calls the next day and I packed my shit. I left St. George, Utah. I drove 2 hours south, hour and a half south, ended up in Las Vegas, and I moved to Las Vegas to change my environment to get clean. Because I knew I had to get a new phone number, new friends, new environment, and just not know anyone in this city. And I didn't know anyone here. And I've been clean since. And people laugh at me when they're like, dude, you got clean in Sin City in Las Vegas. And
yeah, I think I said, yeah, that's not, I said, that wouldn't have been the direction I would have went,
Yeah, man, for sure. Looking at the geography, I should have went north to Mormontown and Salt Lake City. But instead I went south where all the strippers and casinos are. But,
well, maybe, I mean, in a way, again, you look at it, maybe that was part of like, hey, if I can clean here, I ain't going back. Right. Cause it's
exactly,
like,
man.
It's at that point, it's like, I can't get out of that. So you start, Quest Education, and you'd mentioned, you max out your credit cards, you get everything going. What was that starting point for you like? I mean, it was like, all right, bang on, here we go. Was it, did you go back and pull back your client and customer acquisition skills? Did you go back and say, look, I need to do marketing? Did you get on the phone and do cold call? What was that, I want to say, fuel that was under the rocket? Because it didn't sound like you had some like plain, I looked at, I don't know, did you see Richard Branson go?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was cool.
I got up in the morning and I was like, I got to see this.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that was interesting to me on that was that the plane was basically, it's a 3-piece plane, and they were going like this. And at 40,000, they released, and then he went up in the air.
Yeah.
And what I was kind of observing was, for many years, we always did the rocket fuel. And what it kind of resonated with me is like, if you don't have enough power, if you don't have enough energy, you need thousands of gallons to get off the ground. But for him to go to 40,000 and go to 200,000, I don't know what it was up there. I mean, it was like crazy numbers, right? And they used the feather. I always was proud that I knew that's what it was called, but they do like the feather. He came back down. But when you started Quest Education, did you have a runway kind of like Richard Branson, or were you at the point of rocket fuel? I got to hit this thing and I got to get through that first 6 months or a year?
Luckily, I did have a lot of contacts. So like a lot of my employees that I work with right now, I've worked with them for many years in different environments. So I've been able to, and I relate this to sports, man, like just having a team. Sometimes like, you play with someone on this team and then you're down the road. I played competitive soccer as a kid, like, you cross paths, and you gelled well before. So it's like, hey, yo, I'm starting a new team. Like, there's a spot for you. Like, do you want to jump on? And they already know how you play and how you operate. So they're like, yeah, dude, let's do this. Let's run it back. So I was able to leverage a lot of relationships. I mean, I would not be here today without networking and without certain mentors and without certain relationships. So that's definitely been something that helped me. And then also what helped me is because I made so many mistakes when I was younger and not understanding credit and spending more than I was making. I was able to make a good amount of money in sales working as an employee, living below my means, saving a lot, putting money away, building my credit. So then when it was time to start the business, I was able to put all the chips in, and I was able to empty out my savings and use credit cards to really just go hard, and make sure that I had enough money going into the company to hire the right people, to, have marketing, to be able to, sustain. And at the end of the day, like, I had no problem in the beginning getting on the phone, like, being able to communicate to clients and provide value and have conversations and be able to get people to the finish line. That's something I'm good at. I have that skill set. Like, I know I could go sell anything, alarms, solar, whatever it is, cars. I've never sold any of those things, but I know how to communicate to people. And that's a skill I've always been able to fall back on. Now, I'm not on the phones really these days anymore because I want to empower and delegate and have my team focus on that. So in that way, I can focus on building and working on the business instead of in the business. But to answer your question, in the early stages, a lot of it was, me jamming on the phone, me selling, me bringing revenue, but then also having enough capital to make sure that I could have a team around me as well. So I wasn't just a one-man show.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, you basically, even though you didn't need that rocket fuel, you basically brought other people to be the wings. And then basically it allowed you to fly. I think that's just maturity, right? I mean, that's just like, hey, you know what? And there's people in life that want to be the rocket fuel. I was reading this thing about someone that's going back into wanting to press another round of growth in their business. And he made a post and he says, I'm not looking for people looking for a work-life balance right now in their life. Are you ready to get on here and make money? If you're looking for work-life balance, you're not my guy. And I thought that was coming from many years back where, the game and the hustle and the clothes and all of that, it was kind of fun to feel that, it was kind of nice to see that there is the youth or even people, I don't even want to say youth, I just people that like the grind. I mean, they like it. And it takes a certain person, but I think that they do like the grind. So here's what I did. And I always like to do this. And so I do this kind of like we'll call it a lightning round in a way, but it's not. I like to go and find a news article and I try to do my best to try to find something that relates to you. And then maybe just get your opinion on it. And so what I did is I went in and I looked at what they would consider oh no, it better be here. Oh, and we were looking for it. Oh no, I guess, did it get lost? No, it didn't. It did when I had to close that out. Well, I'm going to see if I can preface it because I did do my homework. But basically what it was it talked about options for employers. And what it was talking about is that a company was bringing out more opportunities for employers to give to their employees as opportunities. And with the way that the world is shifting, and you have things like Robinhood and you have things like that, we do cater to entrepreneurs. But what is the mindset of employees that want to be vested compared to maybe the employer? Because the article talked a lot about how they want to give more market opportunities to the employers, not just, you have your Fidelity, you have, it'd be like your health insurance. When I'd worked for somebody before, it was like, what's your only option? Well, Blue Cross is on its way, So in this case, what are your thoughts on how this market's shifting and not relying on just the employer to maybe handle those things?
That's where I think it comes down to, having side hustles. Like, for example, I offer health insurance to my employees. And then I have 401k plans for my employees. My employees, they could always set up an IRA on their own. IRA, they can put in $6,000 a year and then invest that money in the stock market, for example. But if they have a side hustle, they could possibly set up a solo 401k. That's one of the best plans out there. You can put a bunch of money in it. get tax benefits, grow your money tax free. You can pull money out penalty and tax free and use it to, invest into a business or real estate, or pay off high interest rate credit card debt, with the loan feature that the solo 401k has. Really where I want to go to, I got a friend of mine, actually there's two of them that own the same business. They're partners. They're levels ahead of me. They're in the 8-figure world. But they have a plan in place, and they're actually doing it right now, where them and a few of their key employees put money into like a business, like an LLC, and then they're investing into different opportunities. Like Everbowl, for example, franchises, like, so it's basically like, hey, we're making good money together, but like, let's throw some dice on the table, right? Like businesses can go under, right? But there's some good rewards. So if you're okay playing, with a risky hand, like, let's just form like a syndicate and let's like vet some deals out and let's invest together. And I thought that was really cool because, their employees, I think they're doing it with like 2 or 3 of them right now. They've been with them for many years. They make good money. And then they're looking at it as like, oh, shoot, we get to invest with the owners. Like they're investing into these different unique alternative opportunities. Like let's do a syndicate together. So I thought that's pretty cool because now that's like your home run money, right? Like that's just money you're not counting on. And if it goes through, it's like, hell yeah. And you're doing it together. You're building some camaraderie,
So in your business model, where is it that your customer meets you in their journey?
Someone has a 401k from an old job or an IRA, and the thought of, oh, shoot, I can access this money penalty and tax free. Because that's a big deal. When you take money out of an IRA or 401k, for the most part, you're paying a 10% early withdrawal penalty, plus you're paying taxes on it. So taxes, easy 20% plus the 10% early withdrawal penalty. So we're talking about 30%, right? So if you take out $10,000, most of the time you're going to pay $3,000, maybe $4,000 in penalties and taxes. It's a lot of money to give up to the IRS. Mm-hmm. So there's ways where you can take that same money out, but not have to pay. You pay 0 penalties and taxes. And that's where we come in to educate people on, hey, this 401k you have from your old job or this IRA, here's how you can access it penalty and tax free. And we're not here to sell investments. We don't sell stocks. We don't sell real estate. We don't sell insurance. We're here to sell solutions. Like, what problem do you have on your journey? That's why I like the name Quest Education, because people are on different levels in their quest, right? Their quest for financial independence, their quest to leave their 9-to-5 job, right? But like, what's their pain point right now? Is it they have high interest rate credit card debt? Is it they need some funding to start their business? Like one of our customers, she was able to use her retirement account, took $20,000 out penalty and tax free, and started her Amazon business. She bought a bunch of wholesale product and she was able to flip that, make enough money. And she now runs her store from home. Like, she quit her job at Great Clip. She's no longer cutting hair anymore. She's working from home with her business, making enough money. And she used her retirement account to leverage that opportunity, right? So it's about finding where the person is in their journey and how can we help them get from point A to point B in an efficient, hopefully in a timely manner too.
Well, I think that what you're doing is really cool. I think that the way you handle it, and I think your story is really cool too. And these journeys obviously make transitions. I went back and looked and saw that you had spoke to a group that it was like 2-3 years ago. And I think that those type of things, like speaking in front of people and things like that, have a lot of just simple marketing, right? What was that transition? Was that a difficult thing for you? Maybe having sales background, it might not have been. But I know that you had talked a little bit when we had met that that's one of your goals, to do more speaking. So maybe a little bit more about what that goal is, and maybe was that a hard transition for you?
Yeah, it was, because I was so used to just being on the phone jamming, right? Like, I never had to really meet customers. I never had to speak. I was just on the phones. And as an employee, you're just focused on calling your leads and closing deals and setting up appointments. But then when you jump into entrepreneurship, if you really want to level your business up, you have to work on your business. You have to work on branding, and you have to work on business development. And a good way to establish relationships and network at a high level is to work on your personal branding, such as speaking. And so that was definitely a transition, right? Like my first few videos, trash, like, I'm stumbling, I'm not feeling confident. My first podcast episode, I was nervous as shit. And, you still get butterflies when you speak and you do certain things because it's.
Well, I mean, if you bring Hornitos in the tequila,
you're good. Yeah. I might need to bring that on the next time.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
That's awesome, man. Well, when I told you, man, when you're out here in Vegas, you'll have to jam on How Winners Win on my podcast, and we'll have to drink a shot while we're jamming. But man, it just comes down to like just doing the work despite how uncomfortable you feel, doing the work despite you not wanting to do it, and then remembering that it's not about you, it's about the content you're delivering. And if you can just focus on what you're delivering to your audience and how it can benefit them, you're not going to care about the stupid shit that goes through your head, like, man, I look like an idiot on camera, or man, like I don't like the way my voice sounds, or man, I don't like the way I look on camera. Like, it's not about that. It's about you just delivering a message that can resonate with somebody.
I think that I pulled 2 books here, and I think that you'll be able to pull a little bit of conversations from each one of them. So I'm going to pull the first one here, and let's see maybe what your first thought about this one here.
Oh man, did you listen to the audio one?
The audio is 10 times better, man.
Man, way better.
I had to get the book because I was like, I'm going for it. What's your thoughts of this guy, and has he impacted? He's made some impacts. One of the videos for me is he's basically he has a YouTube. I think it's like fuck people or something like that. I was like, I've like played that card, that one out, but like. Yeah. I noticed that something that you said that you'd watch the audiobook and things like that. So what was some of the things that his mentality shifted for you?
I really like his topic on the whole, hey, when you think that you're at the finish line and you're done, you're ready to sit out and you're ready to stop, like, did you still have, what I think he says, like 40% left in the tank? Like when you think you're tired and you're done and you're ready to stop, like that's just your mind fucking with you. Like you still have a lot more in the tank than what you actually. Yeah, and that's so true. And I try to remember that, like when I hit the gym, or when I finish some work stuff, things like that. Because that's really true. Our mind is always trying to get us to accept comfort and convenience.
We do a thing called the Moved 30. With the Moved brand here, and I'd actually created it as the Buck 30, but we do have a thing in common. I think that you did the 75 hard.
Yeah, you did too.
I did the whole thing.
Nice. Good job, bro.
You as well, man. I mean, that's pretty cool. I created another program called the Moved Blitz, which I'll be releasing because I found something interesting about that, and I'll kind of see what your thoughts are. I kind of have a funny story. I basically did it, and coming from like a fighting background and all that kind of stuff, you kind of have and you obviously playing soccer, I think you kind of got a little something's not right sometimes in the head.
Yeah.
But when I did it, I'll never forget this moment. So I was doing, when I started it, I said, look, I'll commit 100%, and I was running a minimum of probably maybe, because it was one indoor, one outdoor, but I would do like 3.5 miles or 4 miles for one workout. And then I would swim like 1,100 yards for the second one. And do you remember when you hit because this falls in line with this, do you remember when you hit your peak, when you went, this ain't going to shift? Because I remember there was a time when I went, wait a minute, this is all mental. Do you remember what day that changed for you?
For 75 hard?
Yeah, like what day did you go, dude, I'm not making really because there was a part where you didn't really make gains anymore because of how much Oh, I caught that.
Oh, I had to crack my back.
I've been doing it the whole time.
Yeah.
But where did you find that there was like a day that you just went, dude, this is just from now on, it's just here?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't finish my first time. So this was November 2019. And I'm not a scientist. I have no facts to back this up. This is purely my opinion, but I believe I got COVID in November 2019. I never had the type of sickness in my lungs. I was out for like 2 weeks. The doctors, like when I went to the doctors, they're like, yeah, we think you have bronchitis. And I've never had bronchitis before.
Yeah.
So they didn't seem too certain on diagnosing me. And like I said, I've never been out like that. What's crazy is I have not been sick since November 2019. Knock on wood. Like I haven't got a cold, I haven't got shit, and it's been almost 2 years, right? So I'm telling myself, like, man, I must have that, antibodies or whatever. But I got to day 63, 64, and that's when I hit that wall, and I got sick, and I stopped, and it sucked, man. It ate
Day
at me for a while.
63?
So then when I started again this year, I was just like, dude, bring it on. Like I'm not going to hit a brick wall. Like I just need to take it every day, just day by day. And, it was rough because I went to the gym, and I was lifting heavy. I actually gained weight during 75 hard by design. I went from like 185 to 200. So I was eating a lot. I was really sore, but I just knew what it was like to not finish it. So I think that gave me an advantage the second time.
Well, I definitely hit day 50 and I was like, my body ain't changing. This is just literally going to be it. And I remember it was also, I just got a whiff of that tequila. Basically, I remember.
Oh, nice.
I remember looking down at this thing or whatever. And I remember literally going, I'm watching other people do it. And I'm like, they're walking? I remember going, I'm killing myself.
Yeah.
Well, I got one more for you. Because I think I saw that you met him, and I know that he just released a new book. And I was just on Instagram, and it's pretty amazing how what our society is that we could see people that you admire and have been in incredible situations. And when you see them, and then you maybe comment on their thing on Instagram, and then they kind of like it and they comment back to you. And it was this guy right here. And
man, I got so I just finished his book, that one. I got a cool Grover story. So I met him, I want to say it was Brad Lee's event. I met him a couple years ago, and we ended up just having lunch together, but it was like in a room full of a lot of people in maybe 15 minutes. And it was like 6 other people, right? So it wasn't just me and him, but I was at the same table, and, we shot the shit for a little bit. And then I saw him again at a different event a full year later, and we're kind of passing by each other, and I'm like, what's up, Grover? I just give him a fist bump, not expecting to have a conversation, just like, just acknowledging him, just saying what's up. And then he's like, hey, what's up, Daniel? And I stopped. I was like, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, how do you even know who I am, bro? Like, I'm nobody. I'll never forget this, man. Like, he looked at me, he's like, don't ever fucking say that again. He's like, you are somebody. And I was like, oh shit, man, like he fucked me up. But I thought that was really cool because I'm like, I talked to him a year ago for 15 minutes, and it's not like we exchanged phone numbers and talk after that.
Yeah.
So like that dude has some characteristics that are really unique to remember someone's name like that. I mean, he's a real one. He's really special. So yeah, man. Did you read the book? His newest one?
I'm going through the whole thing. I'm at Winning Selfish.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good one, man. So he's a solid dude.
Well, I think that that wraps kind of this up. You're fucking somebody. I think that's
everyone listening to this.
You're fucking somebody.
You are, or you haven't started, or exactly.
And I'm gonna kind of say, because like I remember growing up when I was younger, it's like cussing and all those things. But the two people we brought up, this guy's like, fuck people, and this guy's like, you're fucking somebody. And these guys are just inspiring mass amounts of people. How do people find you? How do they find you? How can they get involved in it? We obviously detailed that at their journey, if they have, at a place where they're at financially, they can contact you. How do they find you, man?
Yeah, best place would be danielblue.me. It's Daniel, last name Blue, just like the color.me. It's got all my social media handles. I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. And then it's got a link to my book. It's coming out next month, Blueprint to Your Best Retirement. And then it has a link to a course, one of my courses. It's called The Quest Way, How to Make Money Tax-Free. So it's got different modules on how you can make money tax-free, how you can access your retirement penalty and tax free. If you have a 401k from an old job or an IRA, and the idea of accessing these funds, penalty and tax free, appeals to you, and you want to learn more, there's also a link to my company's website, Quest Education. And then that way you can fill out a form. Someone from my team can reach out to you and walk you through that process and help you understand what that looks like. And then it's got a link to my podcast, How Winners Win, where we help people with different strategies to win personally, financially, business, and try to bring some value there. So we have a lot of fun with that podcast. And Jason, hopefully we can have you in the studio one of these days. That invite is open for you, brother. So danielblue.me is where you can find out more information about me, my brand, my company, and all that fun stuff.
Well, Daniel Blue, I've had a blast. I didn't get too buzzed. I'm doing perfectly fine here. But I definitely got a buzz just hanging out with you, man. You got great vibe, and I really appreciate it. Moved, Entrepreneur Evolved. Thanks a lot, brother.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.